Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you a complete form validation and I'll do it using simple vanilla JS. Okay, so let me show you the demo of our project first. So we have four form fields here. We have username, email, password and confirm password. And these form fields already have the validation in place. So how to check? For example, if I try to submit my form now, click the submit button. You just got a message, right? And this box, this input box, now has red border, and you are getting the message that username must be of at least 4 characters. So let me include more than 4. Now we are good. Okay. Now if I specify some kind of symbol, see, now we are getting another message that username can only contain alphanumeric characters and dot and underscore. So you have to remove that special character. You can have all the alphanumeric values, and along with those you can have dot or this underscore in your username. So if you do like this, you are good. Okay, next moving on to the email field. Email field, first of all, must be at least of 8 characters. So let me randomly type 8 characters. I'm good. Now if I try to submit, now I'm getting another message that is please enter valid email address. Okay, now we all know how a valid email address looks. We have a domain name. For me, maybe this is my username. Then at the rate, then the domain name, that is Gmail, or it might be Hotmail, some other mails that are available. And finally we have an extension that is .com or .net, something like that. Now this is still incomplete, right? That's why if you try to resubmit, you will still get the error message. So what you have to do, you have to finish it like this. Now if you try to resubmit, now we are good. Okay. Now moving on to password field. Password must be of at least 6 characters. So that means we can have, for example, A, B, C, D, E, F. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 characters, and maybe G. Now if you try to submit, you're getting another message that is please enter a valid password that has at least one number and at least one special character. So it just cannot be alphabets. Okay, you need to include at least one number and at least one special character, like maybe dot, underscore, or at the rate. So now I'll give A B C D at the rate 1 2 3. Okay, now if I try to resubmit, now we are good. So now in the confirm password, we need to put the exact same value that we did put in our password. For that, A B C D at the rate 1 2 3, and let me add another additional character, that is hash. Now we are still getting the error message because these two doesn't match. Now if I just delete the hash and try to submit, now our form is submitted. And if you notice carefully, in our form submission we are redirected to a page and a PHP page. Okay, because form submission is possible using PHP but not from any HTML file. So that's why in our project we'll be doing it from index.php file, not from index.html. So we'll have only HTML code in this PHP file, but the extension should be PHP. Okay, so that's all for now. Now let's see the folder structure of our project. So what's the folder structure of our project? That is, we will have an index.php file where we will write simple HTML, and then we'll have another file that is from submit.php. We'll use that file just to show simple message like, hey, your form is submitted or something like that. After that, you will have your JS folder and CSS folder, and inside the JS folder you will have a file that is main.js, and this will be our main JavaScript file and only JavaScript file for this project. And in CSS folder we'll have main.css, and that will be our CSS file for the project. And we will also use a library, a front-end library, that is Bootstrap, for some styling. So that's it. So let's start coding. First we will code our HTML inside this index.php file. So for that, you can just type HTML and choose this second option and hit enter. So now you will have your own bare bone boilerplate where you will write all your HTML. So what do we have? We have Dr. HTML, HTML language English. Inside head tag we have 3 meta tags. So first is character set, that is the compatibility. The second one, the third one is for viewport. Now the only important meta is character set, that is UTF-8, that is the standard for all the web pages that you see. This one is also important, like the minimum browser requirement. And the third one is meta name viewport. Now meta name viewport, so meta tag can also have this name attribute. Meta name viewport is actually gives the browser the instruction on how to control the page's dimension and scaling, okay, in the viewport. So meta name viewport, viewport is a value that is specified in this name attribute. Now in this content attribute we can have one or multiple values. So here we have 2 values, that's why those 2 values are separated by comma. So let's talk about the first value. First value is the width. Now width here specifies to be equal to the device width. Now we could also specify certain pixel values like 500 pixel or 600 pixel, something like that. Or here we have used device width. Device width means 100 VW or 100% of the current viewport width. Okay. The next value is initial scale. Initial scale is having a value that is 1.0. Now first we need to understand what initial scale does. Initial scale controls the zoom level when the page, I mean the web page, is first loaded, and it has a value range. So the minimum value that you can specify here, that is 0.1, that is the initial minimum scale, and the maximum value that you can specify, that is 10, but the default is 1, that is specified here. Okay, that means we are in our default zoom level. Okay, we can also add some other values like minimum scale, maximum scale, user scalable. Okay, so one thing I'll add here, that is user scalable. User scalable, and user scalable can have like values like yes, no, 0, 1. Okay, so 1, if you specify 1 here or you specify yes, both are exactly the same. So 1 or yes means user can scale, and 0 or no means user can't. Okay, so here we will specify user scalable no. That means we are not allowing any user to scale our web page. So the initial scale will be the default one, but the user cannot scale the page. So user scalable no. I think that is for our safety. So no more detailing on basic things. Next we have our title. Then we are closing our head tag. Then inside the body we'll start typing our from. Actually we'll build our from. So let's do that. But before that, as I have earlier mentioned that I'll be using CSS library, that is Bootstrap. So we can use Bootstrap in so many ways, but cdnjs.com is a good one. So in cdnjs.com you can type Bootstrap and you can select the first one, and we can take the JS file as well as the bootstrap.me.css file, but in this project we will not be needing the JS file, so we only need the CSS file. That's only thing that we require. So now I'm going to copy the entire link tag and go back to my code editor. Here under title and before closing head tag, simply paste that. So now my project is using the CSS from Bootstrap. You can also control hold and link, click, just to check whether the file is there or not, and it's there. It's min file, so don't try to read it, although you can. We'll be using certain classes. That's the only thing we'll use. Then, as our CSS file is already created, we'll simply link that file. So for that, tag, and link is a self-closing tag, and link will have the first attribute like rel, that's for relation. The relation is style sheet, and we also have SIF. That will be the path and the file. So that means the CSS folder, and inside that we have our CSS file. Okay. Now, how to render this file, this index.php file? So here I'm using a server, that is XAMPP server. Okay, as we are using PHP as our extension, we can't just render our file like this. So you can't just open with Google Chrome. If you do that, you'll only see your code. Okay, so you need a server, and I think the easiest one is XAMPP. XAMPP is the server that we are using. Okay, so XAMPP server, it's our server that we are using, that is XAMPP. So XAMPP is free, so you can download from here, and you have to install it. So I have installed in my D drive, and in my D drive I have kept the XAMPP. So the installation path will be your D drive. Okay. So in D drive you will see a XAMPP folder, and inside that XAMPP folder you will have another folder, that is htdocs. So wherever you will install the XAMPP, there you will have first XAMPP folder, then inside the XAMPP you will have htdocs folder, and inside the htdocs folder you will keep the project, the project folder. So that is the way to put it. Now how will you run it? Run the index.php file using the XAMPP. First, when you will install, you will have XAMPP control panel. So I can search for it like this, XAMPP. And see, I already have this option available, that is XAMPP control panel. So I've opened it in here, and after that I've started first two services, that is Apache and MySQL. So I've started it. Like these three I have not started, but the first two I have. So after those two services turn green, you are good to go. That means you can now run your index.php file. Instead of running it directly using the path, you can simply replace this portion with a keyword or with a name, let's say that is localhost. So localhost refers to the folder, this path. Okay, so whichever drive your XAMPP is installed, then the XAMPP folder, then the htdocs folder. So this entire path, for example, in my case XAMPP is in the D drive, maybe XAMPP will be in some other drive in your case, for example maybe in E drive. So then your path will be E XAMPP htdocs. Okay, so the entire path you can treat it as localhost. Sorry for my spelling. Localhost. Then inside the localhost you have your project folder, that means from validation project, this folder. Then inside that we have our index.php. Okay, so now if I hit enter, the first thing you'll notice here, we have our XAMPP fav icon. Okay, that's the indicator that now you are running your index.php using XAMPP. Another thing, you are not also seeing our raw code in browser. That's also indicating that you are using XAMPP. So just for fun, let me stop these two services and let me refresh the page. And of course my page will not run, the site can't be reached because I have turned off the server. So what I have to do, I have to first start these two services, wait until those two turn green, then I can refresh. Now I can reach my file. So that's all about using XAMPP. Thank you. So now we have an empty file. So for just a simple trial, I'll put an each one file. I refresh. Now I'm seeing file. Okay, that's fine. So I have just kept an H1 and said hi. Now I can see my output in my localhost. Okay. So no styling is applied. So you can inspect and check. Now we have red body. There are some styles that are coming from Bootstrap, but let's ignore that. We don't have any style applied from our end. We can do Control U for the page source. You can just click on the CSS and we have our empty CSS file. That is main CSS, but it's linked. So first we'll build our form, then we'll write our CSS. So the first thing, we will use some of our classes that are available to us from Bootstrap. So for that, we use div and class will be container. So container is a wrapper class that you get from Bootstrap. And if you go to your Bootstrap documentation. So you have to go to like get Bootstrap. In your getbootstrap.com, you can search for the container class. So whatever class or classes that you are going to use, all of those are available in this documentation. Okay, so container is a class definitely provided by Bootstrap, and you can check all the details about the container class here. For example, the width of the container across multiple screen sizes. Okay, so for example, in my current screen size, the container is 1140. Okay, because I'm in X large screen. So this is a class that is already there and coming from Bootstrap. I'm just using it. So inside container, we have another class. We take actually another class that is row. So this class row. And inside our row class, we'll have our column class. Actually, Bootstrap understands row column layout. So inside a single row, we can have multiple columns. That's why just creating a structure like this. Now, in our column, Bootstrap can have at max 12 columns. So if you search for columns, you can see the classes. So you can see this one, call for, call for, call for. That means 4 column wide. A column that will be 4 column wide. So the mean value of a column can be called 1. That means a column which has the width of 1 column, and the max column width can be called 12, because there can be at max 12 number of columns in a row. So here I only need 1 column, and I can make the column width call MD5. Now what is MD? MD is the screen size. So for that you need to search for the documentation like breakpoints. Okay, available breakpoints. If you search for breakpoints, you will see that we have multiple breakpoints coming from Bootstrap. Okay, so we can have simply call 5. That means from the smallest screen to the largest, our column size will be 5 column wide. But what we want the column to be of 5 column, maybe from large screen, and for other screen sizes we'll have 12 column. So we can simply specify like call 12 space call hyphen lg hyphen 5. What does it mean is, from the very small to the medium, we'll have 12 number of columns as the width of this column, and from large, extra large and extra large, we'll have a column of 5 column width. Okay, you can keep it like this, or you can simply erase this call 12. That means by default the column will be 12, and from the large screen only, and extra large and extra large will have column that has a width of 5 columns. I hope that makes sense. Although it's not Bootstrap class, I'm covering it for understanding. So inside that, I can simply keep a heading, and I can have a class, and again I'll use a class that will be coming from Bootstrap. Text center. Now text center, a class that is for text align center. So what text center class does, it simply aligns your text in center. So here I can simply name the project anything, but here like JS from validation using JS, or JS from validation, using JS. Now I can come back to my page, and now I see that from validation using JS. So see, if I inspect it here, and you can hold the control and then press F5 for hard refresh. You are in Windows, and then you can see our column is 5 column wide. Our row is entire row, as you can see. So what you can do here, using our container class or using our row class, actually we can center align this text, or we can do it in some other ways, but I think the easiest way would be using this row class. Now when you are using the class row, Bootstrap already applies this display flex and flex wrap and other flex related properties, and also margin in top, right and left. Okay, so as this is already a flex container, so we can add some additional classes. Again, those classes will come from Bootstrap, and we can simply center align, and not center align horizontally or from right to left, we will also center align vertically. So I'll add justify content center. Justify content center is a class coming from Bootstrap. We apply this class to a flex container. If you add this class and I save, and if I hit refresh here, I'll see Justify content center is added here. So Justify content center will center align this div and everything. If I mean the flex children, or here we have only one child, that is called as g5 inside our flex container. So it will align the flex child from right to left. Okay, now you also need certain height, and then we can also align our flex child vertically. For that, first of all, we can specify a height manually using style attribute. Using style attribute, we can specify height like that, height, and I can keep it for simplicity ph. That means our height will be 100% of our viewport height. Okay, then after that, now if you come back and refresh, if you inspect here, you will see that the height is adjusting based on the window height at any given point of time. Okay, so now we have 100 ph. So at this point, what we can do, we can simply vertical align our flex child. So for that, we have a class that is align items center, and now if we refresh, you will see the text vertically as well as horizontally center aligned. Now I think the alignment is done. Next we move on to creating our form. Now we are finally we are building our form. So I'll take from tag, and from tag itself we'll have some classes and some other attributes. So for the first class, I'll use P5. So P5 is for padding level 5. So Bootstrap provides any level of paddings. P5, if you search for the padding class, you encounter some padding levels. For example, of course, P stands for padding, and these are the levels. So if you do 0, 1, 2, you will get multiple amount of paddings based on the value specified here. So if you specify p hyphen 0, that means padding is set to 0. Okay, here we have specified padding to the highest value, that is 5. Okay, so padding 5 will add some padding all around this form. So after that, use shadow. Now, shadow is another class that helps us to create a box shadow. So here you can see we can have shadow none, shadow essence, shadow, and shadow LG. So this is our shadow, that is a regular shadow. For that we use only the shadow class. And the last class that we are going to use, that is rounded. Now, rounded is another class that will add some. Add, I don't know, where is it? Let's add properly. Maybe rounded. Yeah, rounded. Yeah, I think this is our class. So if you do rounded, we have some border radius, and also we can have some levels for more or less border radius. But I am only using rounded. Okay, you can have some specific values like peel, circle, or specific amount, or you can simply have rounded. Okay, so rounded will add certain amount of border radius. Then we'll have another attribute, that is on submit. On submit is an event attribute. Here we will validate some from. We can validate some from. So I'm just leaving it empty for now. Next, I'll add an action attribute. In action attribute, I'll specify submit.php. So this is the file where we want our action or from action to happen, that is from submit.php. We always need, we can submit the from in the same page, but as we are intending to show some message when the user submits the from, therefore we are keeping an external file like from submit.php. Hope it makes sense. So in our from, the first thing what we'll do, I will use bootstrap classes, so bear with me, I'll explain. In the div we have a class that is margin bottom level 3. MB stands for margin bottom, and inside that you can have level, what else have level 4, level, we have like username, level 4 I will fill up later, and then we have our input, self closing tag. So input will have the ID, that is username. Next we have our type attribute, text. Then we have a class. This class will be coming from Bootstrap, and Bootstrap we have from control class. This form control class can be added to virtually all of the inputs, and this adds some nice CSS and make your from input look decent. And then finally you will have placeholder. You will have value of username. Okay, now let's see how it works. Okay. So we have a from is looking decent. So now we also need another tag, that is small tag. Close that tag. Small tag have an ID, username underscore error. Now why am I taking this small tag? So when there will be some wrong value specified to this input field, any value that is not allowed will show some error message in this small tag. Okay, maybe in red color. So username underscore error is the ID. Then we can have a class name. The class name will be from -text. Again, this is a class coming from Bootstrap. You can check it out if you want. And I want font to be bold. So FW bold class in Bootstrap that makes your font bold. And M1, so I want to have a margin all around. And then I want to have a text that is of color danger. Danger is a theme from Bootstrap. That means your text color will be red. Now you can type anything. Example, username is not valid. And we save. See, now I'm seeing a dummy error message. So for now I'll leave this error message div or this small tag empty because I don't have any error as of now. And in the label for this username, and label can also have a class. Again, this is a class coming from Bootstrap. This is from label. Okay, now after lots of typing, finally we are done with our first from field. Let's see how it looks. Okay, it's good. Although I'm having some value because some other projects I did input some values, that's fine, but it should look ideally like this in your machine. Okay, so anyways, it looks repetitive though those two values, so I can change it. For example, placeholder input now it looks better. So I can copy the entire div and I'll modify certain things, like the label value should be, instead of user name, of course I can use label here, or if I want I can also omit the label. So I have copied the same structure for email, and you can simply erase the sorry, you can simply erase the label. I think we don't need any label here, it is too much. primary, email, and have, okay. Now that's the email done almost. Yeah. Next, that's like small. I think this looks good. You can also use input type email, but text is also good. Next, I need another form field that is for password, and I can use this placeholder to provide your password, and here the input type will be password, and input ID should be password. Okay, and in our error small element we have the ID password underscore error, class of from text, font weight bold, margin 1, and text in there. That's fine. Finally, after we're done with the form fields, we have the last input element, input type, submit, and class of btn. Btn is a class coming from Bootstrap. We use that class for styling buttons. You can search for the btn class in Bootstrap documentation. And then you have an additional class that is btn primary. Now btn primary is a class that we can use for theming the button. So show you, we'll add blue button. Okay, btn, search for button, yeah, button tags. See, these are the examples of the buttons, and the appearance are according to the classes added here. Okay, so the first one is button and button primary. So btn is the default class that you must add for all the buttons, and these are the optional classes like button primary, button secondary, button success, button danger, button warning, info, light, dark, all those buttons. So here we are using btn primary. You can also use other theme buttons if you want. Okay, so then input type submit, class btn primary, and value okay, and now our form is almost ready, although we don't have two password fields, we have only one password. So yeah, and also the placeholder should be password. Okay. Yeah. I have to clean it so many times. So what I can do, I can open it in incognito. See it. Now I don't have any values coming from other projects. Now this is the name, the email, password. So like the password, we can simply duplicate the second last from field and paste it here. So instead of password, ID can be confirm password. So I'm putting the ID of C password. C stands for confirm. Okay. The type will be password. Class is from control. The placeholder should be, instead of providing your password, you have to write confirm your password, and instead of password error you have to write C password error. And yeah, so this is our prompt. And yeah, this is pretty much it. So now we need our styles. So now we'll focus on writing some basic styles that we need for our form. As you can see, we already have a form and it's coming from our index.php. Now we have linked a page, CSS page. This is CSS folder, then main.css. So now let's style it. So first, for the universal selector, we also here indentation, delete, yeah. So margin, padding, then box sizing, border box. These are the three most important styles for universal selector. And next, what we will do in the root selector, usually create the variables in CSS. So here we only need two variables, one for the success and one for the danger. So for that, yes, success. Now why I started with DS, because this success variable will hold an RGB color, but the color is coming from Bootstrap. So for for green, success means green. This green is actually used also in Bootstrap. So next we have danger RGB. For that, use these two RGB layers. Okay, now next I want to have a background for our body. Now in our body we want to have a gradient background, for example. I mean, you can have a solid color, but let's provide a gradient background that will make it look better. Background, image, then linear, gradient, inside linear gradient. So what we specify here? So we specify direction. For example, we can specify to right. That means we are applying the gradient from left towards right. Next, we specify the color. Let's take a color, and I know this because I have already done it once. So B8, C double B and 8, and this is %0, 0. Okay, then repeat that thing. So and you can also like create your own gradient if you want that. There are so many gradient generators that you can use. let's have another color. 33%. That color is, I don't have any color at this point, but I'm just sticking with my color that I already created earlier. And now so I'm just specifying different percent values. E609C. Okay, and then I only have one value left, that is for 100. So at 100% we have E609C. Okay, now let's see this. Refresh. Start applying my style. Shoot background image. So this is our background that we have just created. There was a comma, because of that there was a comma in the end, because of that the background was not applied. Okay, now after background, the background is enough for the body, we don't need another thing. Now form, we can also have other background for the form, because you can see that the form doesn't have any background as of now. So let's apply one background there too. Linear gradient, apply gradient, you can also apply solid color. So to top means we'll apply the background from bottom to top. Now it's looking much better. So just have style or home. And then I'll create two classes. One is success and another is error. So in the success class, I'll use it as a selector for our success message in our PHP. Okay, and otherwise we'll use this error. So success will only have a border, and the same for the error. So let's write these properties. Border, pixel, solid, RGBA, and as we have already created color or a variable for our success, let's grab that. Like that. Okay. So and also RGBA, and as I have specified here, this is where RGB. So the alpha value is also required, so we can give a comma and space, like give it value of 1. That means we want the color to be of full opacity, that is opacity 1. The same for the error. just change the variable name. Okay, so that's it. I don't think we require any more CSS for this small project. So now it's time to add our JavaScript. But before that, what I'll do in my from submit.php file, I'll just type out inside PHP block. I'll just type out echo. Echo is a statement. Using echo statement, you can display something in a PHP page. Okay, so that's a simple thing. I'll show on this page. So the idea is, on submission, I'm going to redirect my from to that page from submit.php, and in that from submit.php page, I just display from submitted. Okay, now let's write our JavaScript. That's the final part of our tutorial. So JavaScript, what we'll do first, so I'll grab all the error elements. Error elements means where we'll store our errors. So the first error element will be this username error. So I'll just grab that small tag from our DOM and store it in a constant. Let's do that. So const username error, and select the first instance of that element. Document dot, we can use get element by ID, or we can use query selector. So I'll use query selector. So query selector is a method that lets us select any element from our DOM, just like we select in CSS. So for ID, we'll add hash. For class, we'll add a dot. So this is our username error element. Now I'll just copy this line for 3 more times. So I'll put my cursor in the end of the line, and then I'll just hit Alt Shift and down arrow 3 times. And I'll just change the name. So instead of username error, the next will be email error. The constant name should change because it's constant. And then we have password error. Then we have C password error. And we'll also have to change the ID value. Okay. So the ID value for the email error will be this ID, that is email underscore error, and for password we'll have password underscore error, password underscore error, and for confirm password will be C password underscore error. Okay, that's all the error elements are now stored in constants. Now next we have to hide all error elements by default. Okay, now why will hide all the error elements? Because if you notice here, we have a gap. Inspect that. So inside our margin bottom we have a small. We have nothing in the small, but we have added some margin there. That's why we have certain space that the small is occupying. We don't want that because it's just adding some additional spacing. We don't want that. So that's why we'll hide it. while loading the page, then only when we'll have error we'll show them. Okay, unless there is an error, there is no need to show the error element. Okay, so for that it's rather simple. What we have to do, there are so many ways we can do that, but I'm just using the easiest way. Use style attribute, username error style, then we can use the display property, CSS property, and add the value of none. So this way we can again we can do it in so many ways, but this is the easiest that I think of. And I'll repeat that line 3 more times, and I will just hide email error, same way, password error, same way, and finally C password error. So this is how you can hide things. Okay, so after that, now if we save and if we go back and refresh our page, okay, yeah, nothing is happening. Why is that? Let me go back to my PHP. Obviously we have to link our script before closing body tag, so we have not done that yet. So before closing body tag, let's add our script. Type text slash JavaScript src inside src we have the main.js file in the JS folder, so we specify the folder name first, then main.js. Now if we refresh, then nothing happens. That's strange. Let me inspect that. There is nothing happens. Get element by class name. Okay, I'm sorry. This is wrong. I didn't notice. It should be just styled or display. Let's come back. Now those things are hidden. All the small elements from or down for the errors are hidden. Okay. Next, we'll go back to our index.php, and now on from submission, on submit, I didn't specify anything earlier, right? Now simply specify validate, and I'll pass event. Yeah, so validate event. Event will be any event. So when you click on the submit, that is also an event. So we pass that event to this validate function. Now what you'll have to do, you have to create that validate function and catch that event and maybe prevent that event from happening. So let's write that function. So below our validate function, so function, the name should be exactly the same, function validate. Inside the function validate and pass, you can pass event, just passing e. Okay, now what, just to stop this from submission, yeah, now it's submitting, right? Even when it's empty, it's submitting. That's why you are redirecting to this from submit.php. I don't want it to happen, so to prevent this behavior, which is the default behavior, all I can do is e dot prevent default. So prevent default is a method that just prevents the default behavior. It's very common to use. Now if we submit, nothing happens because we are not submitting the from, and we are just preventing it. Now of course we will allow the from submission, but only when all these values of all these input fields are valid. Okay, so I'll just implement that logic later. Right now, next, what we have to do, right? So here, as you can see, I have basically so let's check whatever value we are getting. So in our validate, okay, what we can do here, right? In our valid we have prevented now the default behavior. Let's grab the input elements. Let's grab the input elements. So input elements are the input fields, obviously. So let's grab all those input fields, and of course this time I will use the ID. We did also grab by ID earlier, so let's use the same technique, that is query selector. So const username document, that refers to our document object, dot query selector, and inside the query selector let's specify the ID of our first input element, that is input ID is username. Okay, this is our const username, and let's copy this line 3 more times. So alt shift down arrow 3 more times. Instead of username, the next constant will be for email, so we'll call it email. Next will be password, and the last one will be C password, and we'll also change the ID values here. So for email, the ID value is email. Next, the ID below password. Next, we have C password. Okay, now we have all our elements. Okay, that's great. Now from these elements we also want the value. Whatever value we type at any point when we submit, we want to grab the value of these input elements. For that, I'll have to select the input element values. Input element values. So yeah, this is pretty much almost same, except we need to change the constant name and we want to add value, dot value. So what dot value does, it grabs the value of an input element. First dot value, document dot query selector, we are selecting the element, user element, then we are grabbing the value of that element. So the constant name will also change, and it will be like username val, email val, password val, and C password val. Okay, now we have all of our values. Now we can check those values, and let's do it for testing. And this is purely testing purpose, we will comment it. Okay, so let's not comment it now. Console.log, and of course we can check all the values using comma. Let's do that. Okay, now I I've refreshed it in the console, and in my console nothing showing definitely. Example, let's specify some dummy value, and I don't care about any value. Okay, 4 values. When you submit, 4 values are there. That means our from is actually calling the validate method from our JS. Okay, it's not yet submitting. How do I know that? Because if the from were submitted, we will be redirected to the from submitted PHP page. That is not happening because we have the e.prevent default here. So we are using the validate function. That's it, and we are getting the values. Okay, that's enough. Now moving on. Here we can call multiple functions. So now for username validation, I'll write a function like check username below like this. So let's write that function, check username, and check username can be an arrow function. Okay, and this arrow function will take this username value. So whenever we check with respect to the value we have specified in our field, right? And we have taken that value in this username val constant. So we can take that value and then we can do something with that value. And this function will return boolean value. So this function will either return true or return false. So let me just comment it here. Will either return true or false. So yeah, this check username, just like check username, will also have other functions like check email. Okay, create those functions, not check username but check email, and this function will also return either true or false. Similarly, two more. And third one is check password, and the fourth one will be after email. We have the check password, and the final function will be check password match. Check password match. And we also need to change the arguments. For example, for the check username we have this user name val as argument. For email we'll have the email val as our argument. For check password we have password val as argument, and for the check password match or the final function we'll have actually two arguments. One is password val, another one is c password val. Okay, so check password val and password val. Okay, now all of these functions will either return true or false. So as you can see, these four functions will return boolean values. Okay, so now those boolean values, we'll call these four functions from inside our validate function. So from inside our validate function we will call these functions, and based on all of their returned values we'll store those return values. Will check actually if all of those return values are true or false, and we'll store those values, I mean the ultimate value, that is after checking all of the return values are true. If all of those return values are true, then we'll store true, otherwise we'll store false, and we'll store this true or false to a constant. So let me do that in a actually let me do that, otherwise it's been confusing. So return val. Okay, so this returned, so let me returned val, and this return val will store all of the return values. So for example, check username, if check username is using is returning maybe either true or false. Okay, so it will check for the return value. So check username will have argument, that is username val. Okay, like this, and we will also need other values like check email, and here we will pass email val, and then we need check password, and we will pass password val. Then we need final one, that is check password match, and pass password val and check password val here. Like this. So if all of these functions return true, then only the true value is assigned to this return val. Okay, and here is the interesting part. If this return val is true, so let me copy that. If the return val is true, then we will if the return val is true, then what we can do, we can return, first of all, this function will return if all of those return values are true, will return true, otherwise will return, will actually do prevent default. So let us cut this prevent default from here to else clause. Now what we just did, this is actually a bit tricky. So return value will be either true or false, right? Because if all of these functions return true, then this return value is true either, or this return value will store false. If any of these functions return false, then this return value will also store false. And if the return value store true, then only this validate function will return true, otherwise this validate method will return e.prevent default. That means we are not returning false actually here, we are actually preventing the from to be submitted. So that's what we are doing here. Okay, so now if we check, we refresh, we are not able to submit the from because none of these methods are returning true actually. And you can also like print, okay, check whether, okay, refresh. Now it's undefined because these functions are not returning anything. Just for trial, let me return true from all of these functions. Return true from the email, also from password and check password match. If all of these things are returning true, now in console, what you will see here is true. And of course our form is submitted. That's why for a fraction of seconds we saw the true value. Let me do that again. The true, and yeah, we are just being redirected to the from submitted page. So now the from is been submitted. If any of this return false, okay, now one of the functions are returning false. Okay, now let's submit. Now I'm getting false, and no, I'm not being redirected to a from submission page. So yeah, if any of these functions will return false, then we'll prevent the from submission. So that's the logic that we are after. Now we'll have to build these froms. Instead of returning manually true or false, we have to write the logic when it should return true and when it should return false. Let's do that. I think that's the most interesting part of this video. So the first thing, I'll just build this. I'll just build this check username. Check username is the first thing. Okay, so let's do that. So now let's create that function. Create the check username. So in check username, first we'll check for the length of the username. Okay, so for that, wrong function. Looks like I should create it here. So I'm going to use simple if block. Now please try to understand the logic here. So if the username val dot length is greater than 3, so I want the username to be at least of 3 characters. Okay, so if that is the case, if the username length is greater than 3, then first what I'll do, remember I have already hidden it. Within this username error element, display none. So I'll repeat this line in my function. Why am I doing this? For example, if I try to submit my form and it gave me an error, the next time when I try to submit, I want it to hide. Just if there is no error. For example, first time I did input a username of length that is less than or equals to 3, so I got an error. So next time when I give a username that is greater than the length of 3, then I don't want any error here. Okay, that's the first thing. That's why I'll just hide this thing. Okay, the next what I'm gonna do is, okay, next what we are going to do, we are just hiding it by default by making it display none. Then we'll check whether this username, that username element, whether this username element is having a class error. We'll just check that. Okay, so if username dot class list dot contains error, now this is the class we are checking for. Remember, we had created 2 classes, success and error. Okay, we'll just toggle these classes. So if the username field is already having the class of error, then we are simply going to remove that class and add a new class at the same time. For that, we have another method, that is replace. How to apply that? In a similar manner, that is username dot class list dot replace, and then replace takes 2 arguments. First it takes the old class, that is error. So we are going to be replacing the error by success. So success will be the new class and error is the old one. So if the username contains an error class, then we are replacing that error class using our success class. Else means if the username input element doesn't contain error class, then we will be simply adding the success class. So username dot class list dot add this success class. Okay, so and next we will check with respect to regular expression, because we will allow alphanumeric values and two special characters, those are dot and underscore. So dot and underscore in our username. So these two characters and alphanumeric values. For that, what we have to do, first we need to create a regular expression. So I'll just create a regular expression and I'll explain how it's done. So first thing, let me type it out. Okay. Okay, now we are done with our regular expression. Now let me explain how this regular expression works. I mean, how to create a regular expression, because this sounds rather, I mean, it looks rather crazy. Like, what is this? What does it mean? If you are using regular expression for the first time, it might be a bit confusing. So we might clear things. So first thing is the slash, right? So slash indicates the beginning and the end of a regular expression. Then we have this symbol. So this indicates the start of a string. Okay, so we will be checking for a string, and this is the indication. Then using the square bracket, we are actually checking for a character set. So wherever you will encounter this square bracket, inside that square bracket you will have some character set, and we will be checking whether the username match characters from the character set. Okay, and we will match one at a time. So we will match A or B or C. So what we are matching here, small a to z, caps a to z, 0 to 9, dot, underscore. So any one of all this must be there in username at any point of time. Okay, so for each character we'll check for all these values. For example, your username is A or user. So u belongs to, if it's a small u, it belongs to this range. Okay, then S, then E, then R. Okay, so we'll check for all of those individual characters with respect to this character set. So that's what it does. And then we have, after this character set, we have an asterisk or star. So star indicates that we are matching the previous expression. That means we are matching this entire thing. This is an expression. We are matching the previous expression 0 or infinite number of times. That means we don't require all characters from this character set, but I mean, that's why it's 0, right? That's why the 0, because this star will allow us to avoid any character from this character set. For example, if my username is, for example, USR1, that means I'm only using USR1. I'm not using any other character from this character set, and this star allows us to do that. That's why I'm saying that match the previous expression 0 or infinite number of times. And then we have the dollar. Now dollar indicates end of string. Just like this indicates the start of string, dollar indicates end of string. And that's all about our regular expression. Hope it makes sense. If you have any question regarding any of these things, you can drop a comment and I'll try my best to reply. So moving on. Now we need to check. So regular expression provides a method that is test. We'll be using that test method. So we'll be checking if user name doesn't match the regular expression. Okay, so for that, what we have to do, of course, an if block, and inside the if block, I only need the if block. I don't need any else block. Okay, so in the if block, first what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna check a condition, that is whether this expression expr, our regular expression, and dot test is a method, and then we'll be checking for our username value. So what this checking is doing, we are simply matching our username value with the expression that we have created here. And if it doesn't match, so to negate this condition, all we need to do is to add this, okay, exclamation in the start of the condition makes the entire condition negative. So now we are checking when this test fails. If that is the case, then we'll be executing all the codes in our if block. Now what will be the code? First we'll take the username and we'll use the focus method. Now what focus does, it focuses to that particular input element. Okay, now at the same time we will be adding this condition again, because now we have encountered an error. So if previously we were successful, now we are going to now we have, actually yes, that is the case. Now we have an error, so we'll check whether we have any success class. If that is the case, we'll replace the success class with the error class. Just the opposite of what we did here. Here we checked whether we have an error class and we replace the error class with the success class, right? Here we are doing just the opposite. We are checking for the success class. If the success class is there, we are simply replacing the success class using the error class. Or if the success class is not already there, we are simply adding the error class. So that's all we are doing. Now after that, after the else ends here, what we will be doing here? Now if you remember correctly, we did this display none for the error element. Now we will be displaying, we'll be changing the display property value to block, because now we have an error. Now we want to show the error element and the message. Okay, now we'll be showing the error element and the error message. Now this is the error element we are showing. Now what will be the error message? For that we need username error element, then a method that we are going to use, that is inner text, and this inner text can have any text. So what we'll be providing here is username can only contain alphanumeric characters and dot not dot and okay, that will be our error message. And finally in the end we'll be returning false. Okay, so whenever we encounter some kind of error we will return false. We will only return true whenever the value is actually a valid value. So now our if is complete. Okay, now if this error doesn't occur, that means this if block will not be executed, right? Then we can simply return true. So this is for the failure. This if condition is for the failure of some invalid username. Okay, so let me repeat that. So first we are checking whether our username length is greater than 3. If that is the case, we will be hiding the error element, we will be adding the success class or replacing the error class using the success class. So in both cases we are adding the success class, right? Either we are replacing the error using the success class or we are freshly adding the success class and we are returning true. Okay, now only when our regular expression checking fails, that means this if block will be executed and will be returning false. And one very important thing of returning false, whenever some function returns some value, then that is the end of the function execution, because no other statement executes after a function returns something. So that's why if we return false from here, that means the function execution stops. So all the other codes that follows after this return statement will not execute. Okay, I hope I'm clear. And now we are done with our if statement. So now moving on to our main else statement. And this nesting thing kind of confuses some people, so please be careful. Now if the username length is not greater than 3, that means either the username value is 3 or less than 3, then the first thing that we'll do, will focus the username, because we are already encountering an error. So that's the first thing, username will be focused. Then we'll be adding the error or replacing the success by error. So this is the same thing that we did in here, right? So we'll be copying that line, those many lines we'll be adding in here. So first we are focusing on the username, then we are adding the error class, then we'll also be doing this thing, we'll be displaying the username error block and we'll be showing this error message. Maybe the error message will be different, but the codes will be exactly the same. So because the errors are different here, in this case the error was invalid username, and now we have a different error, that is username must be of at least 4 characters. Okay, now this is our error. Hope it makes sense. Now we are returning false from here. Okay, now we can try it out whether it's working or not. Okay. Although the from will not be submitted because we will be returning true or false from here, but all the other 3 function calls will return nothing, these three, because we don't have any return in these three functions. So yeah, we have only completed our first function. That is the thing. So now let's go back to our browser and let's refresh. So first I'll give a username that is less than or equal to 3. So ABC. Okay, something is going on. What's happening? So as I can see, I just tried to add an alert here. It's not working. Okay, so the course here I can see that small is there. So if I reload, I see there is no small, right? Display none. So as soon as I click here, I have this display block. That means this is block is executing. But oh yeah, there is the thing. Instead of inner text, I have written inter text. That's the wrong property name that I have specified here. You have to do like inner text. I do an inner text. Now this should work. Refresh. Yeah. See, when it's empty, I'm having an error message. And now I see the border is not working. Oh, another bug. So I'm already having an error class, but there I also see that RGBA, 3 pixel solid, RGBA. Oh yeah, definitely. I also did a mistake by not adding this bar. So to use a CSS variable, you need to add bar function by using that variable. So now we press that, and if I hit submit, I'm not still getting it. Again, no error. Is RGB. Okay, what am I doing wrong here? So let me go back to my CSS. Yeah, I'm already in my CSS. 3 pixel solid RGBA bar, and that should be it. So root, inside that I have my variable. Yeah, I think I am good. Border viewer dear dot success 3 pixel solid RGBA. I don't see any problem, to be honest. I really don't see any problem. I think all I need to do, I need to clear the cache. So let me do that. Now this is a tricky way. I'll check the CSS from here. So I'll refresh that. See, the CSS was not updated somehow. I don't know what's wrong with them. CSS was not updated. Now it's updated. We have just refreshed the CSS file. Now I'll go back to my index.php file and refresh. Controller. These are the problems. Sometimes it happens. Yeah, I think now I have my border. Okay, so that was a very bad debugging, I'd say, but yeah. So now you see that username must be at least of 4 characters. So you 4 characters, we specify 4 characters, but add something that is an invalid character and you try to resubmit. Now you're getting username and oligoter alphanumeric characters dot and underscore. So you can do like user underscore name, and now you go. You hit submit again. Now it's clean. Okay, that means we have successfully finished one prompt validation. Okay, that's a good job. I'd say check username function is done. Check username function in our DS is done. Okay, so just like that, now we'll be creating these functions. Okay, let me delete the comments. Mail. So we are only having one argument, that is email val. Now again I will check whether the email val dot length, so the value of our email field must be at least of 9 characters. Greater than 8 means 9, so at least 9 characters. And if that is not the case, then we'll be having an error. So the else will contain the error. So, okay, so the else block is rather simple, just like the check username main else block. This is the main if, this is the main else. So everything will be same except the variable names will change. Okay, so let me copy the entire thing, and also the error will change here. So constant, variable and error, all those things are gonna change, but the logic will remain same. So now instead of username dot focus, what I'll do email dot focus. So email dot focus, and I'll check whether the email dot class list dot content success. If the email element has the success class, then we are having an error, right? So replace the success with error. Yeah, replace the success with error. Otherwise, just add the error plus. Okay, that is done. Now the email error is an element. We have created an email error constant, yeah, that is holding the email error element. So I'll copy that constant name, and instead of username error, simply do email error display block and email error inner text, and also I need to change this message. So yeah, what will be the new message? That will be like email must be of at least 9 characters. Okay, I will return false. That is the error. That is error part. That is not. That was the easy part. Now the if part. The if part means whenever you have the email length that is greater than 8 or at least 9. So what we'll do then, first of all we'll hide this error element. The email error element should have the display none. Okay, that's the first thing. That is out of the part. Next, I'll just reverse this logic. So I'm copying this nested if else, pasting it here. So if now I'll check if the email element is having the error class, I'll replace that error class with my success class. Otherwise, I'll simply add the success class. Okay, that means we are in success block. Yeah. Now next, what I'm going to do now, next is going to be the checking for valid email format. Okay, now so first thing that I'm going to do, email ID, or not email ID, just email is fine. Email filter expression, that's a good variable name I guess. And now I'm going to create my regular expression. Yeah, so the regular expression that I'm going to create it first, then I'm going to explain. So the regular expression starts with this dollar, dollar, and things in between. So first thing that I'm going to put is \w, that refers to another word or any word. Then I'm going to put a plus. So plus means I'm going to match the previous expression at least once or unlimited number of times. So there maybe what actually means like there how many characters are there. There will be one or more characters before this plus. Okay, next thing, we'll be adding this pair of parentheses. Parentheses means just a group that will treat as expression. Okay, inside that I'm going to have a character set. Yeah, we used character set in our earlier regular expression. So yeah, and inside that I'm going to match. I'm going to write backslash dot. That means match the dot literal, and also match hyphen. Okay, so inside our username we can have dot or hyphen, the email username. So see, email can have three parts: so username @domain dot extension. Okay, so we are checking for the username as of now. So after the parenthesis ends, or in fact before the parenthesis, sorry, so after the character set ends, I'll specify question mark. Now question mark, what this question mark stands for? This is like optional character. Question mark stands for optional character. That means in our username we may or may not have dot and hyphen. That is completely optional. It doesn't mean each email username must contain dot or hyphen. I'm saying it may or may not have dot and hyphen. Okay, so after that we're having another word, that means backslash w again. Now we are good, and we are also adding a plus here, just to make sure that we are matching the previous expression at least once or unlimited number of times. Okay, now after this parenthesis, or after this expression, I'd say I need to add asterisk. So asterisk refers to match the previous expression 0 or infinite number of times. So yeah, then asterisk, then add the rate, because each email must contain the rate, and then another word w. Okay, then having a plus means again the previous expression must match at least once or unlimited number of times. Then we'll be starting pair of parentheses to indicate a group or an expression. Then inside that I'm going to have another character set. You see the pattern, right? You see the same pattern, almost the same, I'd say. And again we can have dot hyphen, and that is optional, so we'll add a question mark. So we may or may not have dot and hyphen, it doesn't necessarily need to be there. So after that I need this backslash w. That means there is another word that is also optional. Plus indicates like match the, I mean at least one character needs to be there. Okay, so if you specify something in the domain name that is having dot or hyphen, we need at least one character after the dot or hyphen. Okay, then that is the plus for. Plus means you have to match the previous expression at least once. At least once. That means there must be at least one character. Okay, then after this plus, closing the parenthesis, that is fine. Then adding an asterisk or star. That means the previous expression must be matched 0 infinite number of times. Then finally I'm adding my final pair of parentheses. Okay, in this pair of parentheses I'm having a dot. Yeah, we need a dot actually, because dot extension, this dot is mandatory, so we need this dot. Then we have another word. That word will have how many characters? 2 to not more than 3. So this means match the word at least 2 times but no more than 3 times. That means there can be at max 3 characters. Okay, that's it. And after that I'm adding a plus. That means again the previous expression must match at least once or infinite number of times, at least once. Okay, then I'm having my dollar, it's the end of string, then end of this expression, and last thing is the I means test the previous string. So this is the starting of the string and this is the end of the string. So this part is our entire string, right? So now I is indicating that we will test the string in a case insensitive manner. So I is indicating we will be testing our string, this string that I have selected, in a case insensitive manner. Okay, now we are good with our email filter expression, and just like our username, we'll be checking. Okay, so we'll be checking whether the test fails. If the test fails, we'll be adding the error. Okay, so this logic will be a bit similar. Okay, so if the email filter expression test with the email val and when the test fails, so not adding the not, then instead of, so I can simply copy the entire code because the entire code will change the message and the variable and constant names. So instead of username.focus, what you have to do, you have to do like email.focus. That's the first thing. Then email.classlist.content success. If there is success class, we will be replacing that success with error class. Otherwise, we will be simply adding the error class to the email field. Then instead of username error element, we will be adding email error. Okay, so sorry, email error element. Yeah, email error. That is the element constant. So this email error will have display block, and email error will have new message. So what will be the message? The message will be like, you can write as simple as like, please enter a valid email address. That is good enough, I believe. So now if the if executes, then we'll be returning false. Otherwise, the end of our main if block, before closing our main if block, will be returning true. That means everything is good. See, the true return means everything is good. The email value is valid. So this is the end of execution for our check email method or function. So yeah, now we can check whether it's working or not. Let me refresh. Okay. So first, username must be at least 4 characters. So A, B, C, D, E. Now try to resubmit. Yeah. Email must be at least 9 characters. So let me put down random characters like this. Resubmit. Yeah, I'm getting, please enter a valid email address. So abc@. Email. Okay. Email must be at least 9 characters. Definitely. Gmail 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Now I'm still getting a valid email address here. Okay, that means I need to put a dot, and if I just put a dot, I'll be still getting the same error because after dot I need an extension. So yeah, now the email is valid. So our validation is perfect at this point. Now The email was a big one and now we are left with the check password and the check password match method. Okay, so yeah, let's create those two. Now in our check password, that function is already there. So let me contract this. Yeah, this check password. This check password is having this password val as argument, and for password we can have various types of logic. But here, for example, I'm assuming that the password length must be at least 6. So when the password length is greater than 6, I mean at least 7. Greater than 6 means at least 7. Okay, so password must be at least of 7 characters, and if that is the case, uh, we can have like yeah, an if block definitely. So it's block. And password can also check with a regular expression. Okay, so first the password length, if it's, let's create this else block first. Else block is always the easy one. If the password doesn't contain 7 characters, if the password doesn't contain 7 characters, then we'll execute this else block. So the else block code we can take from our previous function. So let's take that. So instead of email.focus, we have to do like password.focus, right? So email error, instead of email error, we will have password error element. So password, we are taking the password input element. We are in email.focus, replaced by password.focus. Password dot class list dot contents. If the password element contains success class, we are replacing it with error class. Otherwise, we are simply adding the error class instead of email error element. We are taking this password error element. In this password error element, we are adding this display block. The password error, we have inner text of what will be inner text. So email, instead of email, the message will be password must be at least of greater than 6 means 7. Greater than 6 means at least of 7 characters. So password must be at least of 7 characters. So yeah, that will be the general error message when the length is not greater than 6. That is the general error message. Okay, I hope I'm clear. If you have any confusion, again drop a comment. So now we are only left with when the password length is greater than 6. So first of all, I can simply display this error block to none. So when the length is okay, then we don't need to show this password error element. That's the first thing. Then next thing that we are going to do, we'll simply reverse this logic. Let me copy this equals logic. So instead of checking for the success class, we will be checking for the error class. If the error class is there, we will be replacing the error class with the success class. Otherwise, we will be simply adding the success class. After that, we will be checking for a valid password. Okay. Now, password will have at least one number and at least one special character. Okay. So that is the criteria of this regular expression. So I'm going to create my last regular expression, And I know this is painful. Creating regular expression is really painful. Password filter exp, and yeah, the similar way, starting it, ending it, and in between I need to create my regular expression. First, start a parenthesis. I'm not going to re-explain everything. I'm just going to assume that you have watched the entire video and I'll type it out. So now I'm just checking whether a string is having at least a number, at least one number. Okay, so for that, question mark equals to n dot name asterisk, then 0 to 9. So this is my checking that is done. So the entire expression will check whether a string has at least one number. Okay, next we'll be starting another expression. This expression will check whether the string has at least one special character. Okay, so for that what we need to do, we'll start again, question mark equals to dot asterisk, then square bracket, character set, then inside that we have all the list of special characters. Right, so what are those? In dollar, percent, tick, and percent star. Yeah, these are all the special characters that are available in keyboard. So this will check, the entire expression will check whether you will have at least one special character in your email ID. I mean, sorry, your password. My bad. Yeah. Next, I'll be checking for all the regular stuff like A to Z, small A to Z, caps A to caps Z, then 0 to 9, and then information in all the special characters. Okay. Percent. Yeah, I think I've covered all of the special characters that are there. I think I did miss one. Okay, and then I'm going to decide the length. So password should have at least the length of 7. So that's the thing, at least the length of 7, and the max length will be I can have any number, to be honest, but let's have a reasonable number like 16. 16 is still too much. Okay, so what we are saying here is our password should be at least of 7 characters, but no more than 16 characters, no more than. Okay, that means there can be at least, at max 16 characters in our password. We are explicitly just specifying that. And then we have our dollar, that's the end of our string. Then we have this slash, that's the end of our expression, regular expression. Then our end of statement, semicolon. So now I think I'm good with our huge regular expression that I've just built. Feel free to explore actually in this area of regular expression, because it's very important to understand how regular expression works, and you might need some time, to be honest, to hold on to the concept completely, but it's okay to invest that time, I believe. So yeah, now we'll be checking whether the check fails. So regular expression dot test and password well. So I'm checking the value of our password field with respect to our regular expression, and if that fails, what I'm going to do, first I'm going to focus, right? I need to focus on this password field. Then that means we are encountering an error, right? Then I believe uh, we need to repeat this logic. This was the same logic, right? Uh, Same logic. We need to add this error class, and then we need to show this password error block, password error to, yeah, password error element. That's why I'm doing display block. Then we need to show a message. Of course the message will change, but yeah, that is the case. So I can also copy this lines. So this is the failure. So the code is pretty much repetitive if you understand it. Okay, so everything will remain same, I believe, except this error message. The error message will be different. This time password error dot inner text will be please enter a valid password that has at least, this is going to be a bit larger message to be honest, at least one number and one special character. That's it. Please enter a valid password that has at least one number and one special character. Okay, I think that's good. And finally, you return false. So this is the error. So outside the error, that means we are successful. So if this if block doesn't execute, that means our password is correct. So we'll be returning true. True will be returned only when we are good. The password value is good. I think this is the logic for password. So we can test it out just to verify it's working fine. Do that. First of all, I'm not having any error in console. That is the good news. Better to submit. Username must be at least 4 characters. So let's type user underscore name. And let's try to resubmit. Username is good. So the email must be 9 characters. So try to enter like user underscore email @gmail.com. Now it should work. Yeah, email is good. Now it says that password must be at least of 7 characters. Now this thing, let me add any 7 characters, only characters. Okay, so A B C D E F G H. Okay, now if I try to resubmit, now it says please enter a valid password that has at least one number and one special character. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to type user pass @123. Okay, now if I try to resubmit, voila, we are good. So now 3 of my validation. Now all I need is the last one, the confirm password. I think this is the easy one. So I think I already have this function. Yeah, I already have this function, check password match, and in this scope of the function I'm going to type actually this should be the this should be the easy one. If it's not the case, means I don't know what that means. So first of all, it will take 2 values and it will try to match those 2 values, as simple as that. So simply we'll check whether the password value is matching, and I'm strictly matching. That means the value and type both should match, although the only matching value is also good. So if you use this, that is also fine. I'm using strict one. Yeah. And at the same time, I'll also check that the password value cannot be left empty. So password value is not equals to empty string. Password value is not equals to empty string. If that is the case, then what you need to do, is, first of all, that is the success part, I believe. Yeah, this is the success part. So let's do a failure part. Else, this is pretty much the same as passwords else block, the previous functions else block. That is this entire code. I'll just change the constant names. Okay, in the else block, instead of password, we need C password. Okay. Element name should change C password. So instead of password.focus, C password.focus, C password.classlist.contents, C password.classlist.replace, C password.classlist.add. Okay. Then instead of password error element, we need to C password error element. So the C password error have display block. C password error should have the inner text that password. The message needs to change, right? Password password must match. Sorry, no, doesn't match. Okay, I need to escape string. Okay, mismatch, because we are using single quotation, and if you don't escape the string, that will be treated as the end of the string. So the following characters, these characters will be inherent. So either use single quotation inside double quotation, or use this escape character to indicate that this single string is not the end of the string. Okay. So password and confirm password doesn't match. Okay. This should be else. Now in the if block, what you need to do, first of all, we need to hide this error element. That's the first thing. So display none, style display none. Next, we can reverse the logic. If the password is having the error class, we'll be adding the success class. This means password and password match, and password is not also left blank. So that means if it was having an error class, replacing the error with success. Otherwise, simply add this success class. So replace the error with success, otherwise add success. I think I'm good. And in the end, what I need to do, return true. That means everything is fine. Just return true. And in our else block, I will return false. Okay. I think I'm done with my logic here, and I think I'm done with my JS. Finally, yeah, it's a bit of relief. So now it's time to check. Finally, so this is our final demo, guys. The good news is we don't have any error. Okay, that means let me close or bring it down a bit. Yeah. So input the username, try to submit. User name, email, username, okay, @ please enter a valid email address. Okay, next, password must be at least 7 characters. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and now it says at least you need a number and a special character. So I'm going to specify, and I'm going to remember. So user @123. Okay. Now this confirm does password and confirm password doesn't match. Okay, so user @12. Okay, I didn't specify 3. Now still says doesn't match. So I'm going to give 3. Now it should match. Now ideally, now if I hit the submit button, I should be submitting my form. That means I should be redirected to the from submit page. So let's try to do that. Yes, our validation is successful and we have finally reached to the end of this tutorial and our form is submitted. So that's it for today's video. Please share and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. So thanks for watching and bye bye, see you next time.